There are many games on Roblox that people fondly remember, whether that be a game that they have good memories with, or have a lot of fun playing. There are also some games that stick to you for a while because of the impact they had. One of these games I enjoyed playing is a little known game called Rickey Rat. Hey guys, I'm ChromaKeys, and in today's video I'll be talking about Rickey Rat. Rickey Rat is a survival horror game created by Cehroaza. We're on a field trip and you're trying to find the famous Mickey Mouse, but other shenanigans ensue and you fall down a rabbit hole of secrets and unexplainable horror as the true essence of Rickey Rat emerges. It is indeed a horror game I played a lot, and I always loved the disturbing environment, wacky voice acting, and boss battles. Despite these praises I gave the game, it is a janky mess with a terrible combat system. There's also many copyrighted assets everywhere. It also has a bare bones linear horror, meaning it's not really scary at all. There's also a lackluster, unsatisfying story that the game is trying to show you through the entire playthrough, but it never really shows. You don't really get that ending that you really want. So that's why instead of a biased take on this game, I'm just gonna do retrospective. I'll be looking at all 3 of the chapters and what happens in them. And I'll show all of you guys the true definite experience of Rickey Rat. The game starts off with a cutscene of you in a school bus with real voice acting.
First, we're going to have lunch, and then we'll be on our way.
The game tells you that you're a student, and your class is going on a fun field trip to Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse. And have a picnic, and then after that, you traverse some roads, and then after that, you see a sewers. Just through the sewers, you see some strange oddities, but you don't really pay mind to that. The roads are being controlled by mice. Leave the sewers, and then you see a damaged robot, one of those mice controlling the robots. It appears that a boss battle has shown up in front of you. You'll be seeing a lot of these battles in general Elden Ring-like combat throughout the game. The first boss, Rat the Tortured. A nice floating rat punches and shoots at you. You dodge some of its attacks and land on one of the fists, and as the fist goes closer to the head, you decide to step on the head. You decide to do this multiple times, and then you end up destroying the rats. So you leave the field and you venture to Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse, where things truly get real. You get inside the clubhouse, it is infested with spiderwebs and kid-friendly items. You're confused, but you hear something. Some weird bug thing. You find some bug spray and then you manage to kill it. But it's just the beginning. As you venture more into the wretched clubhouse, you're starting to think that Mickey is not even here, as more strange things just happen in the clubhouse. Things that you don't really understand.
On your way, you enter an upstairs room. In this room, you see a computer. Bring up the computer helps you to find Mickey. They switch to the library and something opens.
It opens the bookshelf in the library. It seems that the bookshelf opens to the entrance of a dungeon. In the dungeon, you need to get 3 Mickey head things to open up the door that'll probably lead you to the answers that you're looking for. You end up killing a bunch of monsters in this wretched basement, and you eventually get a lantern. You now have 2 of the Mickey face things, and you just need to get the last one. You eventually go to this dark hallway with the lantern, and you eventually meet Sir Knight of the Dungeon. You eventually get the cup out of other, probably fake cups, and then he leads you to a pit. In that pit, you face a horrific monster, the Guardian. The battle is tough, or easy, because of the OP weapon upgrades that you have, and the blind spots in the AI that's really noticeable. But after a battle, you defeat him, getting the Mickey head, and you place the Mickey head on the wall with the others. But a trapdoor opens beneath you and you fall into the void, ending Chapter 1. For just Chapter 1, it kinda holds up well. Let me explain. Chapter 1 tells you that this is no other adventure game, it's a horror game. Even when you start playing, and 1 second in, something is wrong. Strange choice for voices, ambiguous and strange storytelling. The way you venture and see things like the first encounter with the robots, it's kinda scary. It's all there to bring you in and tell you that this game is not what it seems. Looking at it for the first time when it was released, it was a breath of fresh air compared to the other story-like games that had no substance or scare factor, even if the horror is subtle about it. So let's check out and continue with Chapter 2. After falling what feels like hours, you finally hit the bottom of the trapdoor chamber. You then wake up in another chamber and wonder what happened. You then see an ogre, who's probably the one who brought you there, activate something, and then gas comes through the chamber and you get knocked out. You wake up in front of a table full of food and the ogre is just eating away. You then take this opportunity and explore his house. After some exploring, you find a lantern, and then go into a dark passageway. In that dark passageway, there are some weird things, like destroyed rat robots. But there's another strange thing. There's a small passage that probably leads to light. Probably means it leads to an exit. You go into that passageway, and instead of an exit, you just see a void. You just see 3 people praying to the void. And then suddenly, a giant rat rises from the void and kills the 3 people right in front of you. This is the first boss of the second chapter. This boss is called Rat of the Forgotten. This giant mutated Mickey has some attacks. It could slam its hands on the ground and shoot you with its eye lasers. The only way you can damage it is periodically there will be an obby course that would spawn in either on the left or right side of the room. These obby courses are different and can be a difference in difficulty, but I'm being honest, I don't like this mechanic. This is Rickey Rat. This game is focused on fighting system and the story, not parkour. First, this game does not have a sprint option. Some of the obby courses are just straight up unfair. For example, this one right here and this one right here. There's also a time limit for this, so you gotta parkour for this amount of time or you won't damage the boss. But enough ranting. You eventually defeat the monster, or so you thought. The giant rat rises up again, ready to kill you, but the ogre is there, saves you from being killed. The ogre thanks you for being his friend, and points you to the exit to the place. I haven't seen this before. Before you leave, he gives you a mace to defend yourself against the horrors beyond the ways of his home. You leave the cave, and chapter 2 just finally started. As you leave the cave, you see a bunch of giant floating eyes in the sky. You see a farmhouse and a cabin. These locations will be important in the chapter. You go past the distorted Pluto and evade the floating eye things by going behind some structures. You then try and go into the cabin, but it's locked, so you hurry your way to the farmhouse and enter it. In the farmhouse, you encounter a bunch of mutated monsters, but with your trusty mace or pitchfork, I forgot about that. You killed all the terrible monsters and robots within the farmhouse, and then quietly snatched a chainsaw in the process. As you are killing the monsters, you encounter the computer from chapter 1. Booting up the computer, he tells you, in order to find Mickey, you gotta go to the cabin. When you go into the last room of the farmhouse, you see the ogre, dismembered, but he's still alive. He tells you that Rickey has found him. Wait. If Rickey Rat did this must mean this game has power scaling. Think about it. No matter how much time you're outside of the ogre's house, whether that be 10 minutes or 3 seconds, Rickey Rat will always be fast enough to dismember the ogre and still have him be alive enough to tell him that he got attacked by Rickey. This confirms that Rickey Rat is faster than light and canonically can be a multiversal threat. You heard now, folks. Rickey Rat is going to be the next step. As the ogre finishes talking, he dies. You look at the table and pick up the key. This key is for the cabin that was locked before, so you leave the farmhouse and unlock the cabin. You open the door and it looks normal so far, but there's one room where it looks like it's your bus driver. Remember him? You go closer to him, but he gets snatched by an unknown entity. Then it cuts to the room with the body, with bloody text on the wall that says, "I'm always watching," the artist.
Then suddenly, a voice comes echoing through the house. It's some stranger that would finally answer our questions on where Mickey is. The fridge in the kitchen opens and a secret door opens as well. You go down the stairs to the next area.
The next area you encounter is an underground lab. In this lab there are strange experiments and some monsters on the loose. You eventually go into a room where there's a strange creature named Bob. As you're in the room, you can hear an audio message in the intercom that talks about how Bob came to be here and how he's from the corrupted.
Sorry, I had a scratchy throat. Alright, that's better. You're looking at my first test subject. I call him Bob. Bob is one of the many creatures that came to our world through the corrupted. You see, the corrupted is not like our world. It exists to only hold the many mistakes of Earth. Discontinued snacks, forgotten websites, or in our case, Rickey Rat. Rickey Rat was made to be Mickey's sidekick, but fortunately, he craved the spotlight. So in the end, they had to get rid of him.
With that massive lore dump dropped on us, we continue to explore the hidden lab. We then come across a scientist in a big area-like room. He tells you in order to stop Rickey Rat, we need to go to the corrupted to stop him. He says that we as kids have a better chance of surviving if we travel than the scientist himself. He also tells us the main reason Rickey Rat is doing this is to kidnap kids in order to feed their souls to make them stronger. But then a familiar face kills the scientist in front of us. And that familiar face was Sir Knight of the Dungeon. He faces us one last time to stop us from achieving our goal. The first phase isn't really that hard, especially using that upgraded chainsaw. It basically eats away all of his health. And then the second phase. He takes off his helmet and shows his mutilated face. He then phases us one last time. He's much faster and stronger, but we eventually push through, and then eventually beat him. He says that we defeated him, and since we defeated him, we are more worthy to find Mickey than him. He says farewell to us, and eventually transport to the corrupted. We explore this strange place, and then we walk towards Rickey's castle. We enter the castle and see a little girl in the dark, and we try to approach her. And then the screen goes black, thus ending the chapter with another mystery. Chapter 2 having a lot more exposition and lore about Rickey Rat, the Corrupted, and some other creatures in the game. Since this was a very long chapter to summarize, I think it's time for a 30-second break, especially because Chapter 3 is going to be twice as long than Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 combined. So cue in the commercial break.
Don't go anywhere yet. We will be back with more ChromaKeys. We are back with more ChromaKeys.
Waking up in a giant pit, you wonder what happened to you after you entered the Corrupted. Was it all real, or just your imagination? You shrug it off and look around your new surroundings. You spot a man sitting down near a fire. You talk to him, and he says that this is the Pit of Tarnish, and if we escape from this hole, we can stop Rickey. As he says, we are the chosen ones. He then gives us a small battle axe, and we climb our way out of the pit to the castle's garden, where dangerous sentient plants, giant mosquitoes, and other creatures roam this deadly graveyard. You enter through the gate of the garden and see a long field that's being watched by an entity with a crossbow. You sneakily cross the guardian and go to a living room-like area with a long hallway that leads you to the exit. There is no exit in the Corrupted, only Rickey Rat. So you return back to the room and see the ghost of the night from Chapter 2. He tells you to end this madness, and especially end Rickey. He opens the gate near the area from the beginning, and once you go to that area, you end up killing some more sentient plants and mosquitoes, and then you eventually get pesticide. The pesticide is really important. This will allow you to enter through the big gate near the upgrade pillar. You use the pesticide, and you enter. You face the guardian of the garden, called the unwritten character of the comic, a giant flower that would stop at nothing until you're dead. This boss can spawn roots out of the ground, can summon shovels to flatten you, and create a grass sword to slice you. This is only the first phase, and I recommend you to stay in the corner half the time, because his attacks are kinda slow but predictable. Once he exposes his heart, you can attack it, and after some dodging and more attacking, Phase 2 begins. This is where it starts raining and the boss uses more diverse attacks, like slamming its head on the ground and shooting lightning and lasers at you. It is a little harder, but you do the same thing as before, you just be careful. And then eventually, the flower dies, and the Guardian is finally lifted. You leave the destroyed corpse of the Guardian and enter through the castle, but you fall into the trap by Rickey Rat, and every time you reach the end of the hallway, you're being mocked for your attempts to reach him. Then you get transported to an empty theater. You're then told about the story of our adventure so far as if it were a play. You get introduced to a new enemy that you may have heard before, the artist, as the artist tells us that they are watching. After the play, you wake up in the basement of the puppets. This is implied to be the basement of the theater. You look around and explore the decrepit asylum full of grotesque monsters and unseen lore. You see strange horrors in many of the rooms, almost resembling a hospital or prison. In order to get out of here, you need to find this guy's arm and get him something to drink. There are 3 main areas you need to get these items. The first area, you need to go to the room that looks inside of a house. You have to go past these ominous mannequins, where you need to go up in the attic, where you need to get the mannequin's arm. There's also a room near the attic, where you can see the ghost of the night and the orc's head. This room in particular is just a little lore heavy, with writings on the wall that suggests it's the artist. The next area you gotta go is past some hallways that look like a hospital, and even a morgue with puppets everywhere. In order to go to this room past these cells, you need a key. You go past the morgue and go to the hallways that are in the dark. Most of the walls are an electric fence, so you gotta be careful not to touch the walls. Then you find the computer from the last chapter. You boot up the computer, and it says that it's surprised that you are alive, and that you'll probably die soon. Well, that was useful. You then go to the next room, where something strange is happening. Someone is operating on our bus driver. And then it goes to black. A ton of bus drivers just attacking us. After swiftly killing them all, we get the key and we go back to the cell. We then open the door and the inside of looks like a padded room in an insane asylum. We see some food on the floor. We pick up the drink and we head back to the puppet without the puppet having its arm and a drink in hand. They open the exit for us. Now out of the House of Horror, you arrive at the entrance of a funhouse. This place is called the Lost Circus. You meet with a knight with more dialogue, and then you enter the circus. You meet a creepy clown and then go down a hallway, only to be met with a different clown riding a buzzsaw track chasing you down a parkour course in maze. As you're escaping, you find yourself in the Circus Broadway. This is where you need to get 3 keys from different areas of the circus in order to enter the boss room. The first key is in the food area, where you're being guarded by a big enemy. You manage to kill it and get the key, but you also get to talk to the guy from the Pit of Tarnish. He tells you that we are the chosen ones, and he gives us an extra life after he finishes speaking. The next key is in a tunnel of love. You have to find a gang of rats.
Don't come any closer, pal. This is my tunnel. Me and my boys own this. Alright, suit yourself. Teach 'em a lesson, boys. Teach 'em real good.
pretty easily. The last key is in the funhouse. You traverse the funhouse by killing some spiders and some rats. And after clearing through them, you get the key from the oven and leave. Now you have all 3 keys. You go to the upgrade pillar one last time before entering the large tent. You face the artist in an epic battle of the death, good versus evil, protagonist versus antagonist, or something. The artist is a boss with many different attacks in its disposal. These attacks are put into different puppets they control. On the stage, it will change into a different character from different chapters. The attacks will change depending on which character is chosen.
With many attacks to memorize, it's quite a challenge to defeat Phase 1. Yes, this is only Phase 1 of the boss. There is a Phase 2, but I personally not beating it. It has nothing to do with the difficulty, it has to do with the game itself. Okay, small rant. When I was playing this game a couple months ago, I played it with my friend and we defeated the first phase of the boss. But something strange happened. When the boss died, it was supposed to show a cutscene to the next phase, but nothing happened. We waited for like 10 minutes and no cutscene showed up. I guess the game broke for some unknown reason. It was not an old version of it. No, this was a newer version of the game. But that was a couple months ago, and now it is possible to beat the game. But when Chapter 3 was first released on the new Rickey Rat game, I guess it was bugged. I'm sorry for the rant, needed to say this before the end. So let's check out the final phase of the boss. After defeating the artist fair and square and not buying any revives, the artist reveals itself as some kid? What? I did not see that coming. So you're telling me this whole adventure, this whole journey of fighting and suffering is all a story made by this little girl?
Did Rickey Rat cook or not? It doesn't matter. You have to destroy this nightmare forever. This story must end. You begin to fight the girl and realize, wow, she's kinda strong. Especially with that godlike power, but it doesn't really matter. You have your maxed out cleaver and dodging abilities. You end up putting an end to the storyteller's facade. A cutscene appears and shows the aftermath.
How could you do this to me? I created you. How are you more powerful than me? It's all ruined. My entire story is ruined. Mark my words. One day, I'll be back and more powerful than you'll ever know. I'll have a new story written, one where your death is the opening scene. Until we meet again.
The one and only Rickey Rat opening a dark portal and his massive army in the background. He says that with the artist out of the way, he has a plan to make his story come to life. Hope none of this becomes wasted potential. A third cutscene shows us a house somewhere in the middle of a metropolitan area of Nebraska, where we have the perspective of someone chilling and then hearing a doorbell ring. Whatever that could be. The door opens and it's the snail guy from the garden and the circus. We then see who we're controlling, and it's none other than that one destroyed robot from Chapter 1. Apparently we welcomed the snail guy to its house, and with that, the chapter ends on a cliffhanger. Like I said, I hope none of this was wasted potential into other games that will never come out. That will be unlikely, hopefully. Well, to sum up everything I said about the game, it's not bad of an experience. Back in mid to late 2021, Rickey Rat was groundbreaking. I know, but hear me out. It was made by like one guy and his friends who just wanted to make a game. It had so much personality that you didn't see that in any other Roblox games at that time. It definitely had that edginess to it that was appreciated in the small mods to Roblox games from yesteryear. It was like an old Roblox game that came back from the dead. Some examples I could think of are games like Nano Infections, Survive in a Maze with Jason, and Terra and Bikini Bottom, just to name a few. These games had soul, they had heart, and most importantly, they were fun. Even though Rickey Rat was janky and sometimes it broke due to the game killing itself, it was still fun. It was still very fun playing in a disco ball with my friend due to the very absurd gameplay and concept. So for you, Rickey Rat, after everything I talked about in this entire video, you were still a decent Roblox game. Definitely not the best, but you'll always be in my heart as the Roblox game of all time. 7.5 out of 10. I'm ChromaKeys, that's it.